Welcome, Kelsi Sheren.
Hi.
She's got an injured knee, so.
Don't look at it.
Yeah.
Don't look at it. It doesn't exist. It's fine.
Not the giraffe in the room. He's in there. Well, thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So Kelsi's been on my podcast once before, and I've been on hers. She has quite a amazing and intriguing story, and you do so many things that you're just super passionate about everything that you do.
Yeah.
So,
we'll call it that.
Who's seen Kelsi's podcast? Anybody here? All right. Well, the rest of you have got to watch it. She's very, very passionate, and I love that about you. I love that you are who you are, you're in who you are, and you say hell yes to what makes sense, and you say hell no to what doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to introduce you to our mastermind class for multiple reasons. One, how long have you been on social media?
Oh man, since I started the brand in 2015.
So what is that?
Oh my gosh, I mean.
Almost 10 years.
Yeah, I would say now, yeah.
Yeah, so I admire everything you do on social, and then you also have a really popular podcast that you've been doing for how many years?
It'll be 5 years, January.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So being that this is marketing and content, obviously I want you to introduce who you are to everybody, but I also want to pick your brain a little bit about who here has a podcast. Okay, and who here is here because they're learning how to do content on social media better? Most of us, right? So those are two things Kelsi does really well, and that's a few things I want to pick your brain about. But first, introduce yourself, if you don't mind, to the room.
Yeah, I'll try to make it concise because it's a lot, and we'll make it as tight as possible. So I'm Canadian, if you can't hear it. I don't live here. I do still live in Vancouver, but I was a Canadian combat veteran back in 2009 overseas in Afghanistan. I served with the American 101st and the British Black Watch and 3rd Scott Battalion, and I was a female artillery gunner, which up until 15, 16 you guys didn't have yet. So I was privileged to be able to get the opportunity to work in a career that was a male-dominated one, but at the time Canada gave us the opportunity to do the job. So when I deployed with the Canadian 5 RALC from a French-speaking unit. I didn't speak French. That's always fun. And then I went and I worked with the Americans. And then after that, I went with the British, and I went and did a completely different job I was not trained to do, and I was their female searcher. My job was to kick the doors in and take the women and kids into a separate room to search them. And I went with the British. Things all went sideways. We lost a lot of people. I ended up getting diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder due to an operation I went on that went sideways. And then I was sent home and told I'd never work again. I was 19 at the time, and I decided that was an unacceptable answer completely across the board in every single way. At that point, I decided, after the 11 different drugs they gave me and the medical release in 2011, that really I just wanted to die, if we're gonna be completely honest. I was hyper-suicidal. It's what I thought about all day long. I couldn't go into certain areas because of where I lived. It looked like the Middle East. I couldn't be around anybody like that. I couldn't listen to fireworks. I did all of the stereotypical things the government told us we will never ever do. And it was because I was leaning into the labels they gave me. I was leaning into this title of post-traumatic stress disorder, an injured veteran, the TBI, all of it. I was broken, I was wrecked, I was destroyed, and that didn't work for me anymore. So fortunately, I had been dating someone who has still been my husband since, and he really allowed me to lean into different things. So in 2015, when my doctor suggested art therapy, I started creating jewelry on my kitchen table, made out of bullet casings. I knew that I wanted to help people, but I'm not the person that asks for money. It's awkward and weird, and nobody likes to do it. I know I'm not good at it, but I did know that I wanted to help the organizations I worked with. So I wanted, the main goal, and always has been, veteran suicide prevention. We have 44 suicides a day right now. We have skyrocketed over COVID from 22, and we still aren't fixing the problems.
When you say we, 44 is?
That's American, by the way. That's American veterans. That's nowhere else in the world. That is the stat in Canada. It's an average between 22 to 44 a day. Okay? So by the end of this day, 44 people, fathers and mothers, will have died. All because we're not doing our best to help them, get them what they need, and allow them to treat themselves, i.e. the FDA new ruling on MDMA. So What does that look like? Well, it looks like me trying to find another way to help. So I created this product and I figured, well, we could be the vehicle to put the money in the hands of these charities. How do I do that? Well, you have to market yourself. I barely graduated high school. I didn't go to college. I didn't understand social media, and I'm actually not really that outgoing. So the last thing I thought I would do is do what I'm doing now. So that's why the world has a funny way of taking you to where you're gonna go. You just gotta go with it. So this company grew. I met Kevin Hart. He gave me some good business advice. We end up growing. Within 2 years, we're on Ellen. Right after that, we're on all of these celebrities. Next thing you know, we're in 200 retailers. We're in Fashion Magazine. We're in Elle. We're in, CAFA, getting nominated for design awards, all while the time I wasn't getting better and I wasn't feeling well. And then cut to finding podcasting. In 2020, I started this podcast because COVID hit and I was a retail business and we lost it overnight. 200 retailers gone, just like that. So I was losing my identity again. And my friend, who was a former Army Ranger, an American, of course it's an American, said, have you ever heard of ayahuasca? And I was like, at the time, no. Now we're having a different conversation now, so very much so, yes. But then, no, I had no clue. But there was an organization called Heroic Hearts Project in America that was taking veterans and sending them to go do medicine with integration. So I said yes, and I went. But I only started getting the help I needed and doing what I was able to do because of the podcast. So you can't deny the synchronicities of life and where we can go and how it all works. You just have to go. And that's kind of what I've done. So I started this company, Brass and Unity. It grew to this thing that turned into this really successful podcast, which then turned into a book. And it came out last year. And I got published with one of the big ones. And I was one of the very limited female veteran books in the world. And I think I'm one of the only Canadians besides the badass Nicole Goddard, who's no longer with us. But I say that all to say that we can do all of these things. We just have to start. We have to stay consistent. We have to, and consistent, is the biggest piece of the puzzle, that discipline factor, that radical accountability, that I'm gonna post even if I don't want to, even if I don't like it, even if I don't look good, even if I'm having a shit day kind of vibe. And you have to be relentless. And like the way that you drive every day to go pick up groceries or your kid at school, you have to post on social media if you want to matter. And I know it's annoying because it's obnoxious, because why the hell should we have to post on a platform to make our life matter in the world? Why can't we just matter? There's 8 billion of us, so you pick and choose what you want to do. So all of the things that I've done up until that point, whether it's the book, whether it's the entrepreneur, whether it's the podcast, whether it's the speaking or the coaching or whatever, none of this was planned. None of this had a roadmap. I had no clue for any of it. But that's why when I sit here and say, hi, I'm from a small town in Ontario called Campbellford that none of you will ever find on a map, and the only claim to fame we have is a serial killer in the Air Force. Oh, and the toonie, which you also don't even know what it is. So my point to say is, you can come from anywhere, you can be anyone, and you can literally leave your mark on this world, because like it was said by another gentleman ahead of us, it's not really what you do now that matters, it's how you communicate that sticks, it's the things you leave behind that matter, it's how do you want to be remembered. I just want to be a good human. And what does that look like? Well, it looks like creating things that matter, staying in a space and saying, I'm here, I don't care if you like it, I'm unapologetic about it, I'm not an asshole about it, but I'm also super in myself, because I've been to the hell and the depths and lived there for a decade and known what the darkness looks like and knows what the suicidal states look like and know what all those little voices you all hear look like and feel like and walk like and talk like, because I've dealt with them all. The difference is, I decided that I wasn't going to allow the government or the doctors, because we all know what COVID felt like, but I wasn't going to allow the doctors to tell me anymore that I was a broken post-traumatic stress, major depressive disorder, postpartum, and also treatment-resistant depression. Really? What does that look like to you today? Do I bring any of those bells to you? No, because you don't have to be the thing that they say you are. You can feel the things, because to feel it means to move through it, means to actually heal it. But you have to feel it all the way through, to the depths of it, which means you have to go to the bottom of it and get to the point where you would rather die than live, to know that life is worth actually living. So when it comes to content and when it comes to podcasts, this is all this is. It's just this, sitting across from other people with stories like this. Because we're not alone, we're not the anomaly. This is not a zero-sum game. We all have a story, but you have to decide when you wake up in the morning, do you want your story to matter more than others? And it's not about being above others or putting others down, but it means, have I gone through something enough, important enough, that I feel I have a unique way of healing, talking about, feeling through, expressing? And if I do, why aren't I putting it out there? Because I'm of this mindset, and this is where some people won't agree, and that's okay, because most have an issue with what I say. But it's really simple, right? If you've gone through hell, and I mean actual hell, not like my Starbucks was cold today and like traffic. Like, I'm talking about living hell where every day you wake up and when you take a breath, you cannot fathom taking another. So when you go to that and you've walked through it, whether that's because you've had somebody reach down and grab your hand or whether you got through it all on your own, you have to remember that when you're in the dark and you don't see the light, it's because you need to look down, because you just might be that light. Which means also, though, that you now have an obligation once you get to the other side of that light to turn around as bright as you possibly can and walk all the way backwards and start pulling as many people as possible, because I'm consciously aware every waking minute of my life, and you can tell that by how I speak to people, who I connect. You could ask me, can you get me to so-and-so? You're damn right I can. Why? Because other people did it for me. And who am I to gatekeep anybody's ideas or anybody's podcasts or anything? They did it for me. It is my obligation as a human being to turn around and do that. Now, not everybody's good with that. Not everybody can do that, and I get that. You can't take on all the world's problems. That's also one of my faults. I actually am delusional enough to think that I can break shit and rebuild it so big that not a single person will ever stop me. Like, I'm genuinely that delusional. But it's only delusional until it works. And you have to be that crazy to make real things happen. And that's the difference. So I don't have some magic. I'm gonna guarantee you this and that, and we're gonna have this many clicks and views. You can look on my social media. I live in Canada. Fun fact, I'm banned. I'm not like cute shadow banned. I'm like under CRTC Bill C-11 censorship banned. Government call you, be like, what up, girl? Banned. So even with that, I'm still able to grow. You know why? Because I leave the country. I do what it takes. I get on the plane. I get in the meeting. I show up even after I literally can't barely walk. Because it means more to show up, because I don't know that what I might say might impact one of you. And isn't it only one that really it takes and only one that matters? Because then that has the ripple effect all across everything else you do. So I don't have perfect answers. But I can tell you from either the clients I work with, the people that I help, or even just myself healing myself, it's gonna get ugly, it's gonna be hard. And right before you want to quit, like right before that big pop, it's gonna get the hardest you'll ever have felt. The pressure will be immense, and you will literally crumble if you don't have what it takes. But know that the only difference between you and I is I won't quit. Like, I won't quit. I'll march till I break. I do it in everything I do, and everyone I communicate with, and every sport, family, racing, competition, like board game. I will beat you into the ground, including my 7-year-old. But you know what? He now has gotten so smart that he outsmarts me because I challenge him, because that's where the growth lies. Stop resting on the story. Stop resting on the laurels. Get uncomfortable. Start talking to the camera. If that's the thing that scares you the most, talk to the camera every day. I don't care how uncomfortable you are, because other people are going to see that and go, oh, they're uncomfortable. I can be uncomfortable for a second. Like, that's fine. So I don't have the answers, but I can show you how to do it. And the way that you do it is leaning in and looking in the mirror and actually facing what it is you're so afraid of. None of us can do it for you. I can't hold your hand. You're gonna have to do it yourself. But that means that you're gonna have to love yourself and believe in yourself enough to do that. Because you don't need tools. You just need to love yourself enough to believe that you're worth actually doing it for.
I think you have a lot of good points, though. One, just showing up. Just showing up in rooms like this, just showing up for yourself, showing up for other people, which means telling your story online, being vulnerable, being your true self, which again is something I love about you, is you are Kelsi. You are not Tia, you are not Melissa, you are Kelsi. And a lot of us, I think it's really uncomfortable to go online and just be ourselves in front of a camera, and we think that we should be what other people want us to be or what other people want to see, or we're really focused on, what does my audience think that I am, and let me show up as that person, when really all those people on the other side, they just want to be themselves too. And seeing someone like you that is authentically yourself, whether or not someone agrees with your points of views or not, it's encouraging to see someone so boldly authentic, which you are. So I think you touch on a lot of good points there. And your podcast, I know your passions. I know who you're trying to reach. I know you're trying to change the world. I have on my list of goals, I have advance the human race, and my daughter Jasmine somewhere around here makes fun of me for it. She's like, oh, just a small one, advance the human race. But I think every little thing that we do, every time we make a decision to show up, every time we make a decision to put content out there, to be vulnerable, to tell our stories, we are advancing the human race. When Lynn says, oh yeah, I can do that, and is the first female pilot to fly a 747, and now we have, hundreds of female pilots. And, for you to say, the pandemic happened, I had this extremely successful retail business and it failed, so I did something else. Like, what? Like, so many people didn't do something else. So many people just stopped, and so many people set in that moment. And I was the same way. I had my marketing company, all of our clients were agencies who worked with shopping malls and casinos. And so we did the buying on the back end for all of those, and they all shut down at one time. And a lot of people kind of sat and waited for that to lift and just held on to, what they had and tried to make it work. And someone like you went out and said, wait, now what? This happened, now what? What's next? And I think that's really encouraging. But I also want to ask you, when that happened and when you lost your business or your business, because the pandemic went down, what made you just roll right into, I'm going to keep going and I'm going to do it this way instead? Was it your passion behind it, or was it necessity, or was it something else completely?
I think it's everything. I think that I've never quit anything a day in my life. So I don't really understand how I could conceptually be okay with that. Just as a human. When I was a kid, I tell this story, I've written it and I've told it a million times, but I think it's really impactful for a reason. My mom got a dictionary and she made me cut out the word can't. At 4. So, that leaves a mark. And that was just not an acceptable attitude in the house. You can figure it out. There's no reason you can't. That's just not reality. See, because that's the thing, right? We all have our own lenses, and those lenses are made up of everything that has happened to us up until that point that we're looking through them. So it really is an example of what I was surrounded with, because that's what it goes back to. It's who you're around, what you eat, what you listen to, the music. I'm not exaggerating, it's everything. And if you're not consciously, auditing those things, I'm not talking about every 5 years, I'm talking about every 6 months, auditing the people that come in your life, the podcasts you listen to, the TV you watch, you are the sum of everything. So for me, the idea of quitting, that's never been in the DNA of who I am, whether that was when I was an athlete, before I joined the service, into the business, into anything. It's just no, it's a hard no. So part of the necessity side was I have a huge team. I had a team at the time they have mortgages. They're all women. What am I going to say? Oh, sorry. Right. I'm the Canadian government. Just forget your life. You don't need to worry about that. That's ridiculous. No. So I didn't support masks, so I did naturally what I didn't support, and I actually said, fine, we can play this game too, got my medical license, and we started making masks for the government. So I was like, if you can't beat them, join them. So we made 200,000 masks for our local hospitals that were surgical masks, and we got enough money from that one order that held us over to that. And then we flipped our business and went online. We already had American partners. We already had Canadian partners. We work with all of these nonprofits, whether it's Boot Campaign or Heroic Hearts or Honor House or, Defenders of Freedom. These people rely on support. So it was about looking at, well, if Brass and Unity isn't working in retail, it can work online. How do we market it? Well, we market it through community because we already donate 20% of the net. We already have partnerships with the organizations. Let's just start marketing to the community in a different way. And we took one of our main products and made it our suicide prevention tool. And we just rebranded the heck out of it because you can have a business and you could have a whole bunch of different aspects, i.e. jewelry. Jewelry has a ton of different SKUs. You can do a lot of different partnerships with them. You can really use them not only as a tool for you, but as growth. So how could I use what I had? Well, I can start, going to these organizations, rebranding just the specific tool and really leaning into that. And we did that, and it took off again in a different way. And that's our Buddy Check bracelet. Amy knows about it. I gave her one as well. And those are important tools because they come in packs of 2. So you want to talk about a product that saves lives or does or has impact, buy a pack, call it Buddy Save a Life. So here's the thing that we do with that. If you're naive enough to think you can change the human race, it's because you actually can. That silly little bracelet has saved lives. It's a paracord rope bracelet. You can do and make sustained change in the world, but you, again, have to actually believe that you can and be willing enough to ask the hard question, do I have something already that I can pivot with, that I can move with, that I can shift with, and go? And then find really unique ways of marketing. Like, I know you understand marketing. I don't. I'll tell you how we market podcasts, period, from the start. All the media we've got, whether it's GMA, Carson Daly, Today Show, Fox, CNN, you name it, all because somebody heard me on a podcast. Like, straight up, that's it. Speaking gigs, universities, podcast. Coaching clients, podcast. Clips, recycling clips. These are all really important little things that you can do. But guess what? I've never spent $1 on marketing. My business has been in business since 2016. We've donated over $500,000. And we're a Canadian company that works with the largest nonprofit base in the globe. And we're a jewelry brand. So you can take what you have, you can remove what you thought it was. You just have to be willing to say, it's okay that it's not what it originally was, but what can it be as I evolve and as I change and as I move forward? And we're about to do that again with the podcast. It's been Brass and Unity for 4 years. Well, now I know what I really want it to be, and it's rebranding to the Kelsi Sharon perspective, because I didn't think I was worthy then, so I didn't put myself forward. But I know I know sure as hell I am now. So that's why I'm able to do that. That's why I'm able to change it. That's why I put my whole face on the cover and not an old military photo of me when I was 19, because it's not who I am. It made me who I am, but it's not where I'm going. So we have to remove the idea that we are these things, this box that we put around our business or our podcasts or our friends or our labels. Remove all of those boxes completely. Let those ideas kind of spur. You don't have to start new things all the time. That's why people fail constantly at things. You have to fail forward, sure. But instead of restarting and coming up with something else and spending a whole bunch of money on this, look at what you have and go, what can I do with what I have that's already established? How can I cut costs with that? How can I market differently? How can I do it free? Because I guarantee if you look around, and this is how I met Tia. It's how I met Melissa. We were at David Meltzer's thing for Apple. But how did I do that? I asked David on my podcast. David said, I give you 20 minutes. I said, oh, this is going to be the best 20 minutes of your life. He had no idea who I was, but then I got invited to that, right? And then we got to do the season together, and then we got to do the season together. And then these things, this is what happens. The thing that people don't want to hear is that you actually have to be in the room. So how do I get in the room? By being in the room. Because when you leave, you're going to remember people for those rooms, and you're going to go, oh, that's a good person for a speaking gig, or, oh, I got something for them. Mm-hmm. Because this space is a space of reciprocity if you allow it to be one. Mm-hmm. So stop thinking it's a zero-sum game. Stop looking at what you have and going, oh, I need to create a whole new thing to be at that level. Probably not. You probably have already done the legwork. Lean in to the different parts of yourself. Lean into these rooms. Ask hard questions. And actually ask the question. Meaning, if you need help, ask for it. Don't allow the ego in. Say, hey, I got this thing. What do you think? Ask for 5 minutes. Yeah. The worst you're going to get is no.
And you touch on some really good points there that, we talk about being a good entrepreneur, we have to be able to pivot. Pivot doesn't always mean starting over from scratch. It sometimes means doing the same thing you're going to do on a different path, right? Or taking a different path to get there. But you talked about you haven't spent $1 on marketing, and being someone who took a lot of dollars for marketing as a marketing career, I had people come to me and they would say, I have $1,000, what should I spend it on marketing wise? And I would say, just stamp your business name on it and throw it out the window, because you're competing with these businesses that I didn't take on clients that had less than $20,000 a month to spend, and those are the businesses you're competing with. But what you can do with that $1,000 is buy a ticket to go into, go to Aspire Tour as a VIP and meet the other speakers and meet the people in the rooms. Come to things like this, invest that money in yourself to learn and educate yourself. But the room's only as good as your follow-up. So if you leave this room and never talk to another person that you met here again today, might not have been worth the ticket. But if you follow up with it, the ripple effect from just one person here that you make a connection with is going to keep happening. Kelsi and I met, and she said, it's on my bucket list to fly on a private jet. And I was like, well, that's easy. And she was like, well, that's easy.
Because that's not my expertise.
But what are you doing tomorrow?
I'm gonna go on a jet.
Yeah, right. And all it took was being in the room, speaking, her truth, and then following up. And now there's a ripple effect, and the same thing with everyone in this room. So I want to encourage everybody to, not only just talk to each other while you're here, but follow up. This is only as good as you make it, and it can get really, really good. So thank you for coming.
Yeah.
It was great having you,
Thanks.
You and your cane and your pain, but we're so happy you're here.
No, I'm glad to be here. And lastly, just one last thing is, if you're in the podcast space and I mean in it, go get yourself on other shows. Start DMing people. Everyone's like, well, DMs don't work. Listen to me very carefully. Every show I've ever been on, and you can look at my list of shows. I don't need to sit here and rattle them. They're ridiculous. And I say that with the most humble space I can ever come from, but I work so hard to get on them, so I'm really proud of that. DM people and be relentless. How can I help you? What can I do for you? This is why I think this story will matter for your audience. What do you need? I'll fly there. Can you make time? 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Get on the planes. I'm telling you, those hosts talk to those hosts who talk to those hosts, and then you get to sit with people like Jordan Peterson. So do the work, lean in, be vulnerable.
Awesome. All right. How can they get a hold of you, Kelsi? Oh,
everything's either at, so Instagram is the best way. I respond to you personally there. So, and I don't have someone doing that to me. So just Kelsi_Sharon. It's IEKELSIE _Sharon. And then everything else if you just pop in my name, you can get me anywhere. Awesome. Anywhere and everything.
All right. Well,
Thanks,
thank
team.
you. Thank you.